welcome to the Fandom Portals podcast, where curiosity meets community in a celebration of all things geek. We build connections on every episode by delving into your favorite fandom questions in the time it takes you to brew that perfect cup of coffee. All right, Fandom Portals listeners, buckle up because today's guest is nothing short of a pop culture powerhouse. Joining us is Brendan, the man, the myth, the self-proclaimed jack of all trades when it comes to all things geeky, but he has a special place in his heart for the world of anime. He's my personal senpai. He's the brilliant mind behind the More Than Hentai podcast, where he dives deep into anime appreciation with a kind of passion that only a true otaku can muster. But that's not all. Brendan is a podcasting maestro. He has many years of podcasting under his belt, and he is also the proud dad of two adorable French bulldogs. Trust me, folks, this Australian treasure is about to take us on an anime-fueled adventure you won't want to miss. Brendan, thank you for joining me. How you going tonight?
I'm doing good. Talk about pressure. Like we've recorded back to back here, looking behind the curtain, and that intro that you just gave me nearly knocked me off my chair. Like big words there, big pressure on these shoulders. So I hope I can deliver.
No, I appreciate you being here, Brendan, and thank you very much for having me on your podcast earlier. Yes, full disclosure, we're recording back to back here. I have just recorded an episode on the More Than Hentai podcast, which is Brendan's little baby. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your podcasting journey, Brendan, how it began and where it sort of sits for you now?
Yeah, sure, man. More than happy to. So strap in, make sure that cup of coffee that you have brewed, listeners, is a big one because, this journey started around 9 years or so ago now. And it started off the back of just, peak online gaming hysteria back then, playing a lot of Call of Duty with friends, getting into squads together, and a lot of smack talk in the game chat and the party chat. And a few of the friends who were playing with were like, to myself, Reese, and Sam, who I initially started the first podcast up called The Hungry Gamers way back when. They're like, man, you guys are funny. You guys should record this. And it was more so like, shut up, dickhead. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're just playing games. And that popped up a few more times in the background. I started this little podcast outlet, or this pop culture and video game outlet called 8-Bit. And we were doing, video game reviews written primarily, but then the constant chatter in that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 game chat about, make a podcast. We went, you know what? To hell with it, Jimmy. We're going to make a podcast. So we got together in my friend Reese's very hot box bedroom one January Saturday afternoon, turned on some microphones and away we went. So recorded just shy of 400 episodes on the main Hungry Gamers feed. And off the back of that, started breaking away into, we did role play content with some tabletop stuff. We did a wrestling podcast. We did a basketball podcast. I had a food podcast, and it started sort of building and growing, and we made a pretty great community, and the Hungry Gamers and 8-Bit became sort of one of the biggest here in Australia, which was, very, very surprising and very, very touching, very, very honored to have people that decided to sort of give us a go, because we were just a couple of dumb kids in Sydney recording our thoughts and ideas, whether they were good, bad, or otherwise. And built up, and the momentum sort of took us all around the world. We went to, PAXs and E3s and other game and pop culture expos and recorded content here and there, and then made a lot of good friends through this space. And a lot of them were like, man, we should collaborate. So 8-Bit started evolving over the years, and at the peak of its powers, there was 36 different people under the banner, and there was, I think, 23 different podcasts under that banner. So it was a monster of a thing, which was great, but also very hard to control. And it got a little stressful, a little much. A couple of years back, stripped that right back to its foundations again. It was just a couple of us making a few podcasts, a little bit more of a concentrated effort. Kept going. Like Reese and Sam on the Hungry Gamers sort of came and went over the years. And then one of my best friends, Ali, joined very early on. I think she joined in episode 8 as sort of a floating special guest, and then became a full-time guest on the Hungry Gamers. Then it was just her and I for a massive period of time. And it got tough because she was in America and I'm here in Australia. So juggling time zones, you'd know.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. And sort of partway through 2023, she had some, things shifting in her life, and she's like, hey, I don't feel I can fully commit to it, and completely understandable. We're all got our own things going on in the 9 to 5 and just in the daily grind. So she stepped back, and then I had a bit of a monthly sort of guest series going where I have a person join me for that month, and it felt great that whole residency period, but it just didn't feel the same. And my passion and enjoyment for anime was building and building and building, and the video game passion was sort of waning and waning and waning. So
Yeah.
sort of came to loggerheads. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing the Hungry Gamers stuff. I'm going to stop doing 8-bit. I'm just going to focus on the anime stuff. At the back end of 2023, shuttered 8-bit and shuttered the Hungry Gamers, and have just been doing the anime thing wholly and solely. Like started More Than Hentai in early 2023, and then started off this news offshoot a couple of months ago with my friend Courtney. So all I'm doing, man, is watching anime and then talking about anime these days, and it's a good, simple life.
Yeah, that sounds like the dream for lots of people. And it sounds like you've had heaps of different experiences as well in the podcasting space. But you've settled yourself onto the anime sort of genre. And guys, you can check out the More Than Hentai podcast. The links will be in the show notes below. So make sure you go and show some love to Brendan down there on his latest passion project. With your anime journey, Brendan, what's the earliest memory you have of an anime you watched? And how'd you get into the space?
So I got into anime at far too young an age for the content that I was consuming. So growing up, my uncle, he's only 7 years older than me. So like growing up as kids, we were pretty close. We'd hang out and play together and play video games and whatnot. And I used to stay over at my grandma's house, obviously where my uncle lived, on the weekend sometimes. And on a Friday night, way back when in the 90s, Friday night on SBS was sort of like the
Oh,
Japanese
yeah.
animation specials. And I remember one night something crossed the station called Ninja Scroll, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Ninja Scroll. It's one of my favorites. It's a bit of a cult classic, but it is also super heavy. Like it is hard R rated. Like someone that was at that age, maybe 8 or 9 years old, probably shouldn't have seen it because there's violence, there's gore, there's horror, there's rape, there's nudity, there's all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, what is this world? Like all I've known up until now is like Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers cartoons and stuff. And now I'm seeing all this hyper violence and sex and boobies and all that. And I'm like, man, this is where I want to be. Like this is the best. So I went right into the deep end, right up like nice and early. Obviously found my way through Cheese TV and all the stalwarts that most Aussie kids would have stumbled across, your Dragon Balls and Pokemon and stuff. Yeah, my first foray was Ninja Scroll, Bubblegum Crisis, Akira, Neon Genesis Evangelion. So all the real heavy stuff that you probably shouldn't be watching when you're 10 years old or under. But I went in hard and I went in fast and haven't looked back since.
No, that's awesome. And it's refreshing to hear that your indoctrination into anime, you might say, is something other than usual. Would you say that that's kind of cemented your love for, because we were chatting earlier about how you aren't really into some of the longer running animes as much as you are the shorter form. Would you say that that sort of influenced you in the anime that you watch now? The fact that you were so young watching, but also watching one that was, not a fully established big long series.
I think so. Like I was pretty fortunate. Like my parents were pretty relaxed as far as what I could and couldn't consume. Like I got shown a lot of horror and a lot of action and a lot of violence at a young age, for better or for worse. Like love your mum and dad, but maybe I shouldn't have seen Hellraiser when I was a kid or Pet Cemetery because that shook me for a long time. But I think getting in early and avoiding the quote unquote the big three, your Bleach, your Naruto, and your One Piece, which is most people's Mount Rushmores or the holy trinity of anime. Like I don't really go for those much at all. Like I've watched just about all of Bleach. I could not care less about Naruto, and I watched One Piece up until episode 205, I think, recently. And there's over 1100 episodes of One Piece these days, but I'm very big on anything being respectful of time, whether it's work related, whether it's be content that I'm making or content that I'm consuming. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting people's time. I want it to have a good flow, I want it to be nice and punchy and rewarding, where some of these big ones, when you've got 1,000 episodes, there's going to be bloat, and bloat ain't always good. So I feel you can get a lot of good, tighter storytelling done. Like, Ninja Scroll, it's a 90 odd minute film. Evangelion is 25 minutes. Then we've got a few other 25 episodes, and then we've got a couple of films flowing off on that. So I feel you can tell a full, complete story with emotional impact and stakes and all the stuff you love in content in much shorter form. Like, I don't feel everything needs to be 1,000 episodes because it's just not a good time, man,
Yeah, no,
for me.
I agree as well. And, being a teacher and a father and having all of these things that consume your time just generally in life, it's really good to be able to have your stories in that really bite-sized sort of place, but also have them be really high quality and deep as well, which is tricky to do. But I haven't watched a lot of anime together through your podcast, More Than Hentai. We watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which was absolutely amazing. We've gone and discussed that over on your show. And yeah, that's one of those shows that really has that sort of succinct storyline across 10 episodes. The character arcs are really impactful, and you can see them moving from beginning to end in that sort of way. Is that a common feature across a lot of different animes where the characters are really sort of vibrant and likable and very relatable? What's some of the ones that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think so. Like, the great thing with anime is if you've got a fandom or an obsession over the most unique, obscure type of hobby, there's a high probability that there's an anime out there that's done, whether it be good or bad, done a film or done a short form series about it. So yeah, there's something out there for everybody. And then you've got your main subsets. Like, there's sort of 5 primary areas that anime falls into, and then you've got your themes, your genres that fall into that. So you've got Kodomamuke, which is sort of your anime aimed at your kids. Let's say your 10 and under kids, where it's a little bit more cute, a little bit more whimsical. Let's just say Hello Kitty, for
Mm.
example. And then you've got your shonen, which is typically made for boys, like teenage boys in that 12 to 18 age gap. And then you've got shoujo, which is the same but aimed at girls. And then there's seinen, which is 18 plus with a male focus, a little bit more typically, violence and stuff like that. And then you've got your josei, which is the same again for, women 18 and above. So you've got those 5 subsets. And then the themes on top of that, you've got your mecha type. So you're seeing your Gundams and your Neon Genesises, where you're seeing big mechs that are either human controlled or robotic. You've got your slice of life, which is probably my main favorite genre of anime, which is just daily lives, focusing on characters and the dramas, whether it be good and bad, surrounding them. There's so much great stuff in that world. You've got your isekai, where you see a protagonist that dies and then gets transported into some type of magical or fantasy world, which has got some good stuff, but it's also very oversaturated with a lot of crap filler. Then you've got your sort of your boy love anime, or your yaoi as it's known. You've got your yuri, which is, romance between women. You've got your harem, where your protag is surrounded by, a sea of female characters all vying for his attention. You've got your idol stuff, which is focused mainly on, your female pop stars or your pop starlets, your sporting anime, and then your ichi stuff, which is more of your adult comedy leaning into more of the explicit content. So there's something out there for everybody. And then, yeah, whether you're wanting something musical, sport oriented, comedy, horror, thriller, action, etc., it is out there. Like, you're eating well if you're an anime fan, because yeah, the dishes are constantly coming.
Yeah, we had a talk before about how much content there is available for you to be able to choose from, and also how many platforms there are now to be able to get your anime from. So we spoke about like Crunchyroll, and Netflix even has a really good catalog of anime now. You mentioned some anime terms there during your answer. Are there any other terms that we should know about? For example, I know that manga is one, and also like some characters are often referred to as lolly characters. Can you sort of break down some of the terminology that people should know if they're jumping into the anime space?
Yeah, so manga is just the written, like it's a Asian comic, you could say, is what a manga is. So typically when you're seeing manga, that might be the source material for most anime. Like, a lot of anime is derived from some type of manga, whether it be a physical print, digital these days, which is great because you can have thousands of manga at your fingertips on your smartphone or your tablet, which I love. But also we see it derived from light novels and stuff too. So that's usually the base or the genesis of where a lot of this anime sort of translates from. So typically you don't see too many originals. The great thing, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, you mentioned earlier, that's an original adaptation, so an ONA. Then you see like OVAs, which is original video animation, and that ties into maybe it's an expansion off the manga. So maybe the main 10 episodes could be based off the source material, and then an OVA is fresh material that you don't find in the manga or the light novel itself as well. So there's all these little acronyms and subsets and terms that they love to bandy around. Yeah, there's a lot. Like, I'm still learning as I go. Like, I've been watching anime for a long time now, but yeah, there's still so many new things coming out. Or just when you think you understand everything, they throw a new wrinkle at you, or there's a new subgenre that pops out, or there's a new hyper violent thing, hyper cute thing, hyper funny thing. Like, cool thing with anime is no matter how crazy the idea might be, it's going to happen one way or another. Yeah, it's nuts. And seeing a lot of mainstream stuff break into anime now, like there's one doing the rounds at the moment called VTuber Legend, which is just focusing
Mm.
on the hysteria behind VTubers in the content creation space, and seeing them on and off the camera, and they're, portraying a role in the VTuber world, and then, like, turning off that character once that webcam and microphone is off is very familiar, I think, with content creation. Like, we know a lot of people in that space that might be one way and then another way when that mic or that camera's on or off. So there's stuff like that. It's just, yeah, it's a bit of a golden age, I think, with anime at the moment, because there's so much stuff coming out every season. Like, it's based off the primary sort of seasons that we deal with in real life, and off the back of that, we're seeing minimum 40, 50 new IP potentially dropping every season. So every 3 months we've got all this new content to try and wade through, and then continuations on sort of the main stalwarts. And yeah, it's a good time. And referring back to what you mentioned regarding like lolly characters, that's sort of like young looking girls, maybe typically seen as innocent, that you might, you'd want to see them as your little sister in a way. Like, there is some subset that plays into that and it gets a little pervy. Like, that's one thing that can be uncomfortable in anime, is there is a lot of incest, implied incest, uncomfortable sexual moments, unnecessary exploitation, and unnecessary implied nudity sometimes that doesn't really advance the story, but it's just there for fan service. So they do lean into that a lot. Not in every IP, but it is a constant trope that you'll see in a lot. So you might see a panty shot or a bra, or a busty scene with a high school girl here or there, just for the cheap pop.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it sounds like because of the vast variety of animes that you can get and the different subject matter that you can get access to, can sometimes be a little bit intimidating for new people like myself, for example, to jump into the anime space. So I'm really lucky that we connected on Instagram, and you were able to sort of coach me through, give me one to watch. What do you recommend for people who really want to sort of dive into the space, new people to the anime land? What would you recommend in terms of how they would go about finding an anime for them to watch that they may in fact enjoy?
Yeah, like, you've got your Reddits and things like that, but some of those forums, yes, they can be a little nasty, so tread carefully. There is constantly gatekeeping
Mm.
in anime as well as every other major form of media, so you will get some people that'll pitchfork and torch you if you say, "Oh, I haven't watched One Piece." Like, well, you're not an anime fan. You weren't
Yeah.
there from day one. So there is a lot of nonsense like that, but you can find some really good communities on social media. Thread seems to be having a nice, thriving anime community, which is good to see. But the main resource that I use a lot of the time is my anime list. So it's myanimelist.net. It's a free website. You can sign up and create a profile should you choose. But otherwise, you can jump in there, and they've got, the top anime lists of all time based off rankings, based off user scores. So people that have watched the anime, they rank it. And so you can either work through that and just say, you know what, I'm just going to go from 100 down to 1 and go through the in air quotes, best 100 anime of all time. Or you can jump in and search via a certain genre. Like, let's say I want a sports anime based off, in the shonen subset with a orange haired protagonist or something. You can pump that in and it'll give
Oh,
you,
wow.
based off the filters, some recommendations there. So no matter what your kink is, you can jump in there and be like, yeah, I want some science fiction with some mecha and a cute girl or whatever, or I want time travel, or I want period piece drama, or I want awkward fantasy. Like, whatever you're looking for, my anime list is a really good hub. And yeah, you can then track what you're watching, what you're reading. So you can put what anime you're watching this season. It'll show the last completed anime. You can then score it based out of 10. And so you can then start building a catalog of your top anime, your top manga that you're reading. And it then breaks down also what you've watched, how many entries, how many episodes, what have you dropped, what are you planning to watch. Like, I'm just looking at my profile at the moment. It's not fully up to date, but I have watched 135 days worth of anime that I've cataloged on here. So it's kind of good, but also scary when you go, shit, that's nearly half a year of my life that I've spent watching anime. Like, no regrets, but it puts things in perspective.
Yeah, no. I love that the resource is so specific as well, because being such a big and vast space of anime, you're able to really drill down into what you want to watch, and then it recommends things for you as well. Is that correct? Like, based on what you've watched before?
Yeah, for sure. So if you jumped in and let's just say you really like something, like I'm just looking at my profile now, like I like Konosuba, which is a comedy fantasy isekai with some little cheeky, itchy, pervy moments here and there. But you can scroll down and then look at the recommendations, and it'll show either auto recommendations based off the algorithm on the website, or it'll show user based ones where, yeah, if you watch this and enjoyed that, there's a high chance you're going to enjoy this. And then you can also look, there's interest stacks that people can generate where it's like you can put Konosuba in with anime XYZ and combine them in. I'm like, this is a bundle of anime worth watching because it's all great. It's all consistent thematically and you'll have a good time. And even just the reviews that users write in there, like you can't just write, it was good, I loved it. Like they will moderate this like there's no one's business. And unless it's some good context that people can read it and go, wow, that helps frame and shape my opinion, your review will not get approved. So it's well moderated and well policed.
Yeah, that's really good. We might put the link for that in the show notes below. So if you're looking for a place to curate your anime playlist, make sure you go and check out that link as well.
Oh yeah.
Now, yeah, we were talking before about some of the anime to get you started, basically, and I challenged you, or I tasked you with coming up with 3 to 5 sort of animes that are recommended for somebody who wants to jump into the space. I was lucky enough to find my own personal senpai in you, so I'm going to share this resource with everybody that listens to Fandom Portals. What would you recommend for somebody? 3 to 5 animes. Give us a brief rundown of what they're about and why you think that would be good for somebody who's just beginning, just as like a, so you want to try anime kind of list.
Yeah, so this was a good question. It made me think pretty long and hard because I take a lot of pride in like when I recommend something, I feel like that's my reputation, that's my
Yeah.
status in society on the line, whether it be anime or a place to eat or a game to play or whatever. I'm like, I think probably too much about these things. So when you told me that that's going to be one of the questions, like, man, I gotta get out the butcher's paper and the
Mind
yarn and
map
sort
it.
of
Oh,
mind
yeah.
map this thing out. I didn't actually do that and I got a little busy, but I collected my thoughts and put my ideas down. And I wanted to throw a couple of ones at your audience, but I also wanted to avoid some of the mainstream stuff. I've dabbled on a few that people that might be anime adjacent would probably have heard about, but yeah, I wanted to avoid your big three, your One Piece, your Bleach, your Naruto, because yeah, I feel they're overrated. They go forever and they don't always respect the viewer's time. But I wanted to shout out one first and foremost called One Punch Man.
Oh,
So
okay. Yep.
it's about this hero named Saitama who can pretty much defeat evil with a single punch. The world we live in, it's a parallel, like it's an Earth-esque based world that they live in, and there's various monsters and supervillains doing the rounds, and there's a hero association that's set up to fight these. But yeah, Saitama is just a very unassuming, meek-looking, bald guy that you'd look at him and you're like, he's no hero, but yeah, he's been training and then just becomes this absolute beast. And seeing his day-to-day life where he's just trying to live a life free of attention and spotlight, and he doesn't want to be seen as a hero in parentheses. And then he just comes in and one-shot some of these big bads all the time. It's really fun. It's created by a mangaka. That's sort of the term that they use for like a manga writer slash illustrator. So it's created by a guy named One, and his manga art style is some of the best you'll ever see. Like the panels are so highly detailed. And he also created another one, which is fantastic, but it's got such a distinctive and unique art style called Mob Psycho 100. that people may or may not have heard of as well. So one has created two of the biggest new IP of the last couple of decades. And One Punch Man, there's only 2 seasons out at the moment. There's a third one on the way, but it's pretty fun, really enjoyable. The fight scenes are really cool. The downtime and the quiet moments are great. And seeing him sort of have this young apprentice join him called Genos, who's like a cyborg that's out for vengeance because his family was murdered from another cyborg. And he's just seen Saitama as you know, the peak of hero life. So he wants to learn everything he can. It's really cool to see how hyper focused he is trying to train and be the very best, where Saitama's like, I just want to eat noodles and chill out, bro. Like,
Yeah,
you
that's a
know,
good
so
coupling. That's really
yeah,
good.
so you get this odd couple from those two. So One Punch Man, it's great. It's on Crunchyroll and other platforms depending on where you are in the world, but really enjoyable. Another one I wanted to shout out is a really easy watch. It debuted in 2022. It's the 69th nice rated anime on my anime list, which has actually surprised me. I thought it'd be rated higher. It's a juggernaut. It's an absolute monster. It's called Spy Family.
Mm.
So Spy Family, it's been in circulation now, 2 seasons out at the moment, 25 episodes currently available. There's a third season on the way. A film came out in 2023/2024, depending on where you are in the world, called Code White. It's available on Crunchyroll as well as Netflix. It's one of the best-selling manga series of all time, 35 million copies in circulation. But the story, it's sort of set in like a pseudo Germany on the back end of sort of after World War II. And we're introduced to this pretty much the best spy in the land called Lloyd Forger. And he has to then build a family in parentheses to execute this next high stakes mission to keep the world safe. So he gets a fake wife who he doesn't know is actually a skilled assassin named Yor. She's the best. And then he also has to adopt a daughter named Anya. And we find out that she's a telepath. So she can hear her mum and dad's thoughts. So she knows that her mum's an assassin, her dad's a spy, but the two parents have no idea of all their alternate lives and their sort of side projects going on. So it's really enjoyable. It's funny. It's got a lot of heart. It's easy to watch. It's perfect for solo viewing, for, you know, couple viewing. Kids could watch it too. Like the second season, there is a bit of death and violence, but it's really great. It's got a thumper of a soundtrack, and the animation by Wit Studios and Cloverworks is gorgeous. And it is one of the biggest anime doing the rounds now, but I feel as a sort of gateway into this world, you can't get much better than that, because it's just an easy watch. It's funny, it's memorable, the characters are great. Anya Forger, the daughter, is one of the cutest little things you'll ever see, and you just love her right from the get-go. And you just root for this sort of band of misfits as they navigate their way around this spy-like world.
Yeah, what a unique concept. And that sounds really, really cool, with each of the three members of the family having like a really unique kind of ability, but then also him being really focused on his mission and thinking he's in control of the situation. But obviously, there's other things going on. So, how many episodes in that sort of series can we expect?
So there's 2 seasons so far, 25 episodes done across those 2 seasons. There's a third season on the way, and there's a film out as well, but this will keep going. The manga at the moment's ongoing, so the manga hasn't finished. So I assume this anime is going to go until the manga comes to a conclusion, because it's an absolute monster.
Yep, yep. Is that something that's common? I know that I've heard of filler episodes often occur when the manga hasn't produced
Like gotten to a conclusion or an ending.
yeah. And they put those filler episodes in until the more content comes out. Is that something that's common amongst some of those big three that you mentioned before?
Yes and no. Like, luckily with the big three, a lot of the studios involved in the animation side do wait until there's enough chapters in the manga to then jump on in. You don't often get a many Game of Thrones type of situations here,
Mm.
where we're waiting for the George R.R. Martin equivalent to come to the
Yeah,
table and actually
yeah,
finish the
yeah.
damn story. So a lot of the time, these seasons are coming out several chapters back of the manga. So a lot of the time, at least for me as a viewer, there's anime that I've discovered for the first time. I've watched it, and then I'm like, man, I can't wait for the second or third season. And then I'll jump into the manga and read ahead
Oh,
and
you
finish
spoil
it.
it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Sometimes it's
tough.
good. Yeah, sometimes it's good though to see, how it translates from manga to anime. And that would be a different sort of analyzation process as well. But we digress. Let's get on to that third recommendation from you, Brendan. What do you got for us?
This was tough because I was torn. Like the other two, like I was trying to think of what's big, what's readily available is the other thing, especially for people that are new to anime. Maybe they don't want to pony up some money to have a Crunchyroll subscription set up. So a lot of these ones I've mentioned are available also on Netflix. So most people out there that are consuming content has a Netflix account. And the next ones I wanted to mention, My Hero Academia. It's also another monster. It's one of the biggest, franchises of all time. 100 million copies of the manga is out there in the world. The manga has just wrapped up
It's finished
last week. So the manga has come to a conclusion. I'm not up to date on the manga, so I don't know where it's happening. But we've got 150 plus episodes of the anime available, 7 seasons, a couple of films, video games, like you name it. My Hero Academia's name is attached to it. And the anime, it's the 7th most popular anime on my anime list. Kohei Hirokoshi is the writer and illustrator behind it. Fantastic talent. Yeah, this was sort of the anime or the manga that put him on the map. And the basis of this one, it's situated in a modern day fantasy world, like let's just say Earth X, where 80% of the population are born with some type of superpower, which they call a quirk. So everybody's got powers. Some could be great, some could be less great, some could be more practical for day-to-day life. Like there's a character in here that has like tape dispensers in their elbows and can just like pull out tape to do things. So you see all these differences with their quirks, but the story is based around Izuku Midoriya. He's just a normal boy, but he's grown up obsessed over All Might, who was, I guess, the biggest hero in Japan. He is the Superman equivalent of this world, and Izuku Midoriya just wants to grow up and become the next hero and join the Hero Academy and do all the things and save all the people. But he is one of the 20% that is born quirkless.
No.
Yeah.
Poor boy with a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I don't want to spoil anything. Like you learn a lot of what happens in the first couple episodes, but like it's nice to see him stand out in contrast to 80% of the population with all their other powers. Like he's the odd one out at school because everyone else has got all kinds of powers, impressive or otherwise, where he's just a boy with a dream. And you can root for Izuku, like he's a sweetheart of a kid. The assortment of characters you meet when he ends up in UA High is really great. Like there's a lot of archetypes that you're familiar with in a lot of other film and TV and video games, but the animation from Studio Bones is really, really, really impressive. The pacing is great. And even though thematically and the story is completely different, the evolution in the tone reminds me of like what they've done with like the Harry Potter films, where the first one's is a little bit more lighter. And as you see these kids grow up, the tone grows with it and the stakes get raised, it gets darker, you see more death and violence. And that's what happens in these 7 seasons. Like it gets heavy as hell in some of this stuff. And yeah, you just want to root for this little kid that wants to just be the very best and keep the world safe. So yeah, My Hero is another one that I think is well worth a look. And it's on, well, not all, like it's with Netflix, it's sort of a staggered release due to licensing. So it's usually maybe a season or 2 back, but it's a good way to dip a toe. And yeah, My Hero Academia is fantastic.
No, that sounds really good. And it's kind of, as a person that really loves franchises like The Boys or X-Men, for example, like big, massive X-Men fan here. It sounds like something right up my alley because, being born with all different powers is something that's staple in the X-Men, and navigating that sort of world there. Something I'm probably going to sign up to that one too. And, just to tell the listeners of Fandom Portals, as part of the More Than Hentai podcast that I was on featuring Brendan, he recommended that we do watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and he said before that he takes his recommendations quite personally, and he curated that one for me. Like it fell right into the lap of myself, and I just gobbled it all up pretty much because those 10 episodes and that story was just absolutely perfect. So you can rest assured that Brendan has really sort of put the effort in, done the research, picked animes that you're gonna at least be able to watch and hopefully enjoy. So yeah, I appreciate you putting those out there, Brendan. Thank you so much.
That's okay, man. The pressure is slightly off the shoulders. I won't go deep on the last 2 specifically, just being mindful of time, and I could probably talk about these for hours on end as well. But
Yeah, yeah.
another one that is pretty globally renowned now is Demon Slayer. The manga has finished up. The manga debuted way back in 2016. The anime debuted in 2019. Written and illustrated by Kiyoharu Gotoge, I think is how you pronounce their surname. 63 episodes currently available at the moment, spread across 4 seasons. And we've had confirmation that the way they're going to finish up this story is going to be spread across 3 films. They're going to be released over the next couple of years. The concept behind Demon Slayer, it's set in sort of like a feudal Japan type of area where demons are running rampant, killing people everywhere, but there's a group of people that sort of are rising up to fight the demons. They're, known as the Demon Slayers. So we're introduced to Tanjiro, who's a young boy. We follow him because he loses his family to a demon attack, finds out that his sister Nezuko is still alive, but she was attacked by the demon, and now she's become a demon herself. So there's a part of that where he's trying to keep her safe, keep her hidden, but also wants to sort of, seek vengeance for his family that have been very brutally attacked and murdered by this demon. Like, the fight scenes and the animation in Demon Slayer are just about the best you will see in anime or in just broader animation in general. Like, it is so above and beyond just about anything else out there. Like, Ufotable is the production house behind it, and they are on one with this franchise. Like, it is stunning. The character models are unique, but they look great. And the combat and seeing their like breathing techniques that the demon slayers have, like there's fire breathing, wind, water, serpent, etc., and seeing these abilities animated onto screen as they fight these hell beasts is so good. It is stunning. The story's great. The characters are complex. You can sort of get behind some of the methodology and reasoning behind some of the key demons, which, like, anytime you can sort of put your feet into an enemy's shoes and be like, you know what, I kind of get where you're coming from here, Mr. or Mrs. That's good storytelling to me, and it's really great. 4 seasons so far. The 4th season just wrapped about 2 months or so ago now. I've read all the manga, so I know where it's going, and I cannot wait to see these final films translate to screen because it is a feast for the senses, and the soundtrack's an absolute humper as well. And it's the 6th most popular anime on all of my anime list. But yeah, it is so good. It's in my top 10 of all time.
That's really awesome. And as a dungeon master for a very, very, very long time, and being the curator of villains here, there, and everywhere, a good villain can make or break any kind of story. And the fact that I always wanted to create a villain that, characters could look at and be like, you know what, mate, you're actually from a certain point of view. So that's really encouraging as well. So I think my trouble now is going to be which one of these I'm going to sink my teeth into first. But yeah, a good villain is definitely bread and butter.
Yeah, I've got one bonus one that I couldn't avoid not mentioning.
Lovely, lovely.
Because it's this is probably like, this is number 3 all time for me. Like, my number 1 and number 2, they could be a little invasive or a little longer form depending on the viewer. Like, my favorite anime of all time is something called Your Lie in April, which is a slice of life romance drama, but it can be pretty heavy emotionally, but perfect storytelling. I don't think I've ever cried so much in a short amount of time than I have watching that. And then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is also very, 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 very special.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention something called Violet Evergarden, which was based off some light novels that debuted in 2015. The anime, 2018, it came out. It's on Netflix. It's the 46th highest rated anime of all time on my anime list. Only 13 episodes. There's also one OVA and also 2 movies on Netflix as well. And it's tied up around this young girl named Violet Evergarden, who, like, it's sort of set in a war-torn Europe, you could say. And she's just this young girl that is introduced to just this bloodshed and this crazy, hectic world of trench warfare and violence and death and despair. And we see this great war come to an end after a 4-year cycle of that said death and war. And she's left. She ends up having her arms blown off in the final leg of the war. And she wakes up in the hospital and she's recovering from her wounds. And she gets these sort of robot arms, which is a really cool aesthetic. Like, she's a gorgeous character. This has also got some of the best animation you'll ever see anywhere. The soundtrack's great, super emotional. And she ends up getting a job as what they call an auto memory doll. And so what she does, she travels around the country or can do it from their offices where people, back then, not many people could write. So what an auto memory doll does is she transcribes people's thoughts and feelings into words, sends it and then translates it into, letters and books and things like that. So that way the person can then give it to a loved one or give it to a
Oh,
family
wow.
member. She meets all these people in various walks of life, some on their deathbed or some mourning, a lost child. And she's trying to contextualize and put all their thoughts into words. And then that letter or that book gets given to said loved one. And you see all those feelings and thoughts immortalized in text. And so she goes on this journey. There's some major plot point tied into the war as well that gets folded in, but you do get across these 13 episodes little standalone breakaway stories about the characters she meets along the way. And man, some of these stories are so goddamn heavy and emotional, but also beautiful. And you'll shed many a tear watching this because it is really powerful, but it is some of the best storytelling I've ever seen, anime or otherwise. Like, it is so good, and I obsess over this world. I got a Violet Evergarden tattoo the other day because I love it so much. And it's just the best, man.
No, that is such a good recommendation. Violet Evergarden on Netflix, guys, if you wanted to check out something really raw, emotional, really great storytelling. As a person who really loves character drama, that's probably going to be the one that I check out, honestly, Brendan, because, yeah, you've sold
Please
it to
do.
me. Yeah, you've sold it to me, and I'm ready to cry. I'm ready to do it. No, it's really exciting to hear your passion about the topics of anime, and the fact that you can recommend 5 and really sort of talk in depth about all of them really shows to your expertise. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming onto the Fandom Portals podcast and for sharing all your knowledge and just really, opening up the space of anime to those people that may be intimidated by it, because as the Fandom Portals community know, it's not a space that I'm an expert in at the moment, but it's a fandom that I am indeed dipping my toe into. But it's turning out to be more of a jumping, bomb diving into the pool and submerging myself and not coming back out. So it's been an absolute pleasure, Brendan. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, hopefully my aimless ranting at 11 p.m. at night is constructed in a way where the listeners can take away like, yeah, that actually does sound good. I need to check that out, because there's so much good stuff out there. And a lot of people that are just on the fence regarding anime, there's just this misconception where it's like, oh, it's a cartoon for kids. Like, there's nothing for me out there. But like, squash that idea. Whatever you're looking for is out there in that anime space. And a lot of the time, like, anime can do things that live action cannot. So like, you might see a great film, but you see that animated, especially in sort of that Eastern animation style, and it will blow your damn socks off. Like, the animation, the storytelling, the voice work, the pacing, all that kind of stuff just combines to make something so special and so unique. So get out there, find something, because I'm certain that whatever your passion or your fandom is, there's an anime out there for it. And yeah, if you need a hand or you need some guidance, I'm happy to be your senpai, and reach out to me on the socials. I will talk your ears off about anime anytime, any day.
Absolutely. And we'll put those socials down in the show notes so you can find Brendan really easily. He's on Instagram at More Than Senpai. His podcast is More Than Hentai, and you should definitely go and follow that because he gives you all the anime news, and every now and then he'll deep dive into one as well. So if you loved his brief summary and you want to hear more from him, definitely go and check out his podcast. Him and his co-host Courtney, very, very knowledgeable in the space. So go and check them out. They're my go-to for everything anime right now as a fledgling. And yeah, I appreciate everything that they're doing. So yeah, that's it. That's us from Fandom Portals for the evening. And as always, we connect with respect here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me. Much love.